There are moments in life when everything you thought was solid just crumbles beneath your feet. One minute you are planning your future with the person you love, excited about building a life together. The next, you are standing in your own bedroom doorway, watching that future die right in front of you. I am Arturo, and 3 years ago, I was weeks away from marrying the woman I thought was my soulmate. My younger brother Dylan and I had always been close. He was the baby of the family, the one everyone protected and forgave. I trusted both of them completely. I never imagined the two people I loved most in this world would be the ones to destroy me. Before we dive into what happened that night, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end, because what I discovered changed everything I believed about family loyalty and what it really means to forgive. Let me take you back to that evening when my entire world shattered. I was 30 years old, working as an architect at a mid-sized firm in Portland, Oregon. Life felt good. Really good. I had just wrapped up a major project, designing a community center for a neighborhood on the east side of town. Seeing those blueprints come to life, watching the construction team break ground, it filled me with pride. My career was exactly where I wanted it to be. Then, there was Grace. We met 3 years earlier at an art gallery opening through mutual friends. She was standing in front of a massive abstract painting, tilting her head like she was trying to decode some hidden message. When I walked up and made a joke about modern art, she laughed, and that laugh just lit up the whole room. Grace taught second grade at an elementary school downtown. She had this gentle way about her, patient and thoughtful. Kids adored her. I adored her. We got engaged after 2 years of dating. I proposed on a beach in Cannon Beach during sunset, the kind of moment you see in movies. She said yes, before I even finished asking. We started planning the wedding immediately. Grace wanted something rustic and intimate, so we booked this beautiful barn venue about 40 minutes outside the city. We chose October for the ceremony, when the leaves would be golden and the air crisp. She spent hours creating Pinterest boards, picking out mason jar centerpieces and string lights. I just wanted to see her happy. Most evenings, Grace would cook dinner while I worked late. I would come home to the smell of garlic and herbs, her humming along to some playlist in the kitchen. We talked about having 2 kids someday, maybe a dog. Simple dreams, but they felt perfect. My brother Dylan was 27, 3 years younger than me. He worked in marketing, though his job situation had never been stable. He bounced between agencies, always chasing the next opportunity that never quite panned out. Last year, when he got laid off, I helped him out financially, covering his rent for a few months, until he landed something new. That is what brothers do, right? You show up for each other. Growing up, I always looked out for Dylan. When he got picked on in middle school, I stepped in. When he struggled with math homework, I tutored him. Our parents, Robert and Linda, lived about 10 miles away in the suburbs. Every Sunday, we would gather at their place for dinner. Mom would make pot roast, and Dad would complain about his golf game. It was routine, comfortable, the kind of family closeness I always appreciated. But about 2 months before the wedding, things started feeling off. Grace became distant. She would check her phone, constantly angling the screen away whenever I walked by. One evening, she mentioned grabbing coffee with a friend from work, but later that week, I drove past a bar across town and saw her car parked outside. When I asked her about it, she got defensive, said she changed plans last minute, and forgot to text me. Dylan started showing up at our apartment more often, usually when I was at work. He claimed he was helping Grace with wedding preparations, picking out decorations, or organizing seating charts. It seemed thoughtful at first. Grace would mention how sweet Dylan was being, how much time he spent making sure everything was perfect. I felt grateful. Then one night, I saw a text notification pop up on Grace's phone while she was in the shower. It was from Dylan. The message read, Miss you already. My stomach twisted. When Grace came out, I asked her about it. She did not even hesitate. She said Dylan was going through a rough time after breaking up with his girlfriend and was feeling lonely. The text was just brotherly affection, nothing more. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. My best friend Marcus noticed something was wrong before I did. We grabbed beers one Thursday after work, and he looked at me across the table and said, "Man, something feels off. You sure everything is okay?" I brushed him off, defended both Grace and Dylan. I told Marcus he was reading too much into things, that wedding stress was making everyone act weird. He nodded, but did not look convinced. Then came that Thursday night. I had a client meeting scheduled for 6 in the evening, but the client called an hour beforehand and canceled. Some emergency on their end. Instead of staying late at the office, I decided to head home early. It was around 7 when I pulled into the parking lot of our apartment building. The sky had already darkened, streetlights flickering on one by one. Dylan's car was parked right out front. I remember seeing it and thinking he must be helping Grace choose flowers. They had talked about finalizing the bouquet arrangements that morning. I grabbed my messenger bag from the passenger seat and headed upstairs to our third-floor unit. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The living room was quiet, but I could see light spilling out from under the bedroom door. I assumed they were looking at wedding samples or something. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. Then I heard a noise. A sound that made my blood run cold. I reached for the bedroom door handle, my hand shaking slightly. I turned it and pushed the door open. Grace and Dylan were in bed together, tangled in sheets, in my bed. In the bed I shared with my fiancée. Time stopped. My brain could not process what my eyes were seeing. It felt like the floor was collapsing beneath me, like I was falling through space with nothing to grab onto. They both froze. Grace gasped, pulling the blanket up to cover herself. Dylan sat up, his face drained of color. For a few seconds nobody spoke. The silence was deafening. Finally, Grace choked out, "Arturo, wait, I can explain." I just stood there. I could not move, could not speak. My legs felt like concrete. Dylan scrambled to pull the sheet around his waist. Grace started crying, these big panicked sobs that filled the room. But I still could not say anything. My mind was screaming, but no words came out. Then somehow, I managed to ask the only question that mattered. "How long?" Grace's face crumpled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, 3 months. 3 months. 3 entire months. While I was working late on project deadlines, while I was picking out wedding invitations, while I was excitedly telling my coworkers about our honeymoon plans. For 3 months, the two people I trusted most in the world had been lying to my face. Dylan finally spoke. "Bro, it just happened. We did not mean for this." His voice sounded small, pathetic. Something inside me snapped. I turned and walked out of the bedroom. I heard Dylan scrambling behind me, heard him calling my name. He grabbed my arm as I reached the living room. "Arturo, please let me explain." I yanked my arm away so hard he stumbled backward. "Do not touch me." Grace ran out seconds later, throwing on a robe. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Please let me explain. I love you, Arturo. This was a mistake. It was a terrible mistake." I looked at the engagement ring still on her finger. The ring I saved up for months to buy. The ring I slipped onto her hand on that beach in Cannon Beach. "Did you wear it when you were with him?" I asked. She went silent. She could not answer that. I walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. My hands were shaking, but I started throwing clothes into it. Shirts, jeans, anything I could grab. Dylan stood in the doorway watching. "Where are you going?" "We need to talk about this." I zipped up the suitcase and turned to face him. "There is nothing to talk about. You two deserve each other." I left that night and crashed at Marcus's place. He did not ask questions, just handed me a beer and set up the guest room. For 3 days, I ignored every call from Dylan and Grace. My phone buzzed constantly. Voicemails piled up. I deleted every single one without listening. On the third day, my mom called. Her voice was gentle but firm. Dylan told us everything. We need to talk as a family. I drove to my parents' house that evening, dreading every second. When I walked in, everyone was already there. Mom, Dad, Dylan, even Grace. They were sitting around the dining table like this was some kind of intervention. My mom reached across and took my hand. I know you are hurt, but Dylan and Grace made a mistake. They are sorry. My dad nodded. Your brother needs you now more than ever. I pulled my hand back. What about what I need? What about what they did to me? That is when my mom dropped the bomb. Grace is pregnant, Arturo. The words hit me like a freight train. I could not breathe. Everything around me started spinning. I looked at Grace, then at Dylan, then back at my mom. Is it mine or his? The silence that followed was unbearable. Nobody wanted to answer. Then, Dylan spoke up from across the table. It is mine. We found out last week. Grace stood behind him, her hand resting on his shoulder. Her eyes were puffy, her face pale. She looked broken, but I did not care anymore. My mom continued, her voice pleading. This baby needs a family. We need to come together. My dad leaned forward. You need to forgive them, son. For the baby's sake. I could not believe what I was hearing. My own parents were asking me to swallow my pain, to bury my anger, to pretend like everything was fine. Not because they cared about how I felt, but because it was convenient for everyone else. Dylan is still your brother, my mom said softly. Grace made a mistake, but she is carrying your niece or nephew. We do not abandon family. I looked around the table. Nobody was asking if I was okay. Nobody was acknowledging the betrayal, the lies, the months of deception. They just wanted me to move on so they could stop feeling uncomfortable. They abandoned me when they slept together behind my back for 3 months. I said, my voice steady now. Grace started crying again. I never wanted to hurt you. I still care about you. Dylan leaned forward. Bro, I know I messed up. But we can work through this. We always do. Then my mom said something that made my stomach turn. Maybe you and Grace can still work things out. The baby could still have your last name. I stared at her, unable to process what she just suggested. My dad chimed in. Or you could step back, let Dylan and Grace be together, and still be part of this family. You just need to be the bigger person here. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. So my options are, take back my cheating fiancé, or watch my brother raise a family with her and pretend everything is fine. Dylan's face hardened. We are asking you to be the bigger person here. I looked at my little brother, the kid I protected my whole life. You took everything from me, and now you want my blessing. Grace's voice broke. Please, Arturo, do not make this harder than it already is. That was it. That was the moment I realized they were never going to understand. I am making this hard. You two had an affair for 3 months while I was planning our wedding, and I am the one making this difficult. My mom's expression shifted to concern, but not for me. For the neighbors. Lower your voice. The neighbors might hear. That is when it clicked. They cared more about appearances than they cared about me. I left my parents' house that night and never looked back. At Marcus's apartment, I sat down and wrote a long email to my entire family. I explained that I could not forgive the betrayal. Not because I hated them, but because I respected myself too much to accept being treated that way. I wrote, you are asking me to forgive them for the baby, but nobody asked them to think about me before they created this situation. The next morning, I emailed every wedding guest. I kept it simple. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding will not take place. Thank you for your understanding. I did not explain. I did not point fingers. I just canceled it. Then I called the barn venue. I lost the deposit, but I did not care. I contacted the landlord for the apartment Grace and I shared, and had my name removed from the lease. Within one day, I arranged to move all my remaining belongings out. Marcus helped me pack everything into a storage unit. The hardest part was cutting off contact. I blocked Dylan's number, then Grace's, then my parents'. In the first week, my mom showed up at my office. She found me in the parking lot as I was leaving for the day. "You are throwing away your family over one mistake," she said, tears streaming down her face. I stopped and turned to her. It was not one mistake. It was 3 months of lies. Every day they chose to deceive me. And you choosing them over me was your mistake. "I am not choosing anyone," she insisted. "I am trying to keep this family together. A family that asks me to swallow my pain for their convenience is not a family I want to be part of." She cried harder, and part of me wanted to comfort her. But I could not. I walked to my car and drove away. Dylan sent me a long email a week later. He apologized repeatedly and asked if we could meet for coffee. I deleted it without responding. Grace created a new phone number and texted me. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day you will understand." I blocked that number too. Marcus asked me one night over takeout, "You sure about this man? That is your whole family." I looked at him. They stopped being my family when they cared more about their comfort than my dignity. 2 months later, I got a job offer from a firm in Seattle. It was a senior architect position with better pay and more responsibility. I had applied months ago, back when Grace and I were still together, but I never thought I would actually take it if offered. Now, it felt like a lifeline. I accepted immediately. Within 3 weeks, I moved to Seattle. I found a small one-bedroom apartment with a view of Puget Sound. The city felt like a fresh start, a place where nobody knew my story. At work, I threw myself into projects. I stayed late, refined designs, collaborated with engineers. It kept my mind busy. I started going to the gym every morning before work, lifting weights, running on the treadmill, pushing my body until it ached. It helped. I joined a local running club and met new people. One guy, Joel, invited me to go hiking one weekend. We climbed up to Rattlesnake Ledge and stood at the top, looking out over the valley below. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. I also discovered photography. I bought a decent camera and started spending Saturday evenings driving out to different spots around Seattle, capturing sunsets, city skylines, the mountains in the distance. It became meditative, a way to process everything without words. Marcus flew up to visit about 4 months after I moved. We grabbed dinner at a seafood place near Pike Place Market. He looked at me across the table and said, "You look different, man. Lighter." I realized he was right. I had not thought about Grace or Dylan in weeks. The anger had faded, replaced by something calmer. Not happiness, but contentment. 6 months after moving to Seattle, Marcus forwarded me an email from my mom. She had sent him a photo because I blocked her. In the picture, Dylan held a baby, while Grace stood beside him smiling. My parents stood behind them beaming. The subject line read, "Your nephew." I stared at that photo for a long time. Part of me felt sad. Sad for what could have been sad for the family I used to have. But I did not regret leaving. I deleted the email and went back to editing photos from my latest shoot. A year after everything fell apart, I found myself looking back at the journey. Those first few weeks were brutal. I would lie awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, replaying every moment, every sign I missed. Some days, I wondered if I was too harsh, if maybe I should have tried harder to forgive. But then, I would remember that night. I would remember standing in that doorway, watching my life implode. I would remember my family asking me to accept betrayal for their convenience. And I knew I made the right choice. Leaving was not about hatred. It was about self-respect. It was about refusing to let people treat me like my feelings did not matter. I learned to take care of myself in ways I never had before. I cooked my own meals, kept my apartment clean, found joy in small things, like a good book or a quiet morning with coffee. Work in Seattle continued to go well. I got promoted to lead architect on a major downtown development project. It was the kind of opportunity I dreamed about when I first started in this field. My boss pulled me aside one afternoon and told me my designs were some of the best the firm had seen in years. One Saturday, I went to an art gallery opening in Capitol Hill. I was standing in front of a sculpture when a woman walked up beside me. She had dark curly hair and was wearing a leather jacket. We started talking about the exhibit, about architecture and art and how they intersect. Her name was Isabel. She was a graphic designer. We exchanged numbers before leaving. I was not ready to jump into anything serious, and I told her that up front. She understood. We started meeting for coffee, then dinner, then longer conversations that stretched late into the evening. It felt different from before. Easier. No pressure, just two people getting to know each other. Marcus called one night and asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "None," I said. Walking away was the hardest thing I have ever done, but also the most necessary. I thought a lot about what family really means. For so long, I believed family was about blood, about sticking together no matter what. But I learned that real family is about respect, loyalty, and mutual care. When my family asked me to forgive Dylan and Grace for the baby, they were not thinking about me. They were thinking about themselves, about avoiding discomfort, about keeping up appearances. Forgiveness is not about accepting disrespect. It is not about making other people feel better while you suffer in silence. Sometimes loving yourself means setting boundaries, even with the people closest to you. And sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. I do not hate Dylan or Grace. I do not hate my parents. But I also do not regret leaving. I chose my own peace over their convenience, and that choice saved me. I still think about them occasionally. I wonder if they ever understood why I left. I wonder if my mom realizes that asking me to stay would have destroyed me. But those thoughts come less frequently now. Most days, I focus on the life I am building, the projects I am designing, the friends I am making, the city I am learning to love. I am not the same person I was a year ago. I am stronger, more confident, more aware of my own worth. There is a strange kind of freedom in walking away from people who do not value you. It is terrifying at first. You feel untethered, like you are floating in open space with nothing to hold on to. But then you realize that is exactly what you needed. Space, distance, room to breathe and grow and figure out who you are without the weight of other people's expectations. So here is what I learned. Some people will tell you that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. And maybe that is true. But sometimes the greatest gift is knowing when to walk away. Because freedom is not about holding on to people who hurt you. It is about choosing yourself when no one else will. And that choice, that single decision to value my own dignity over everyone else's comfort, that is what saved my life. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family because they did not respect your pain? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story hit home for you, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you deserve respect, even from the people who are supposed to love you most. Take care of yourself out there, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose you.